The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Again, Jesus left the district of Tyre and went by the way of Sidon to the Sea of Galilee, into the district of the Decapolis. And people brought him a deaf man who had a speech impediment, and begged him to lay his hand on him. Jesus took him off by himself away from the crowd. He put his fingers into the man's ears, and spitting touched his tongue. Then he looked up to heaven and groaned and said to him, "Ephphatha," that is, be opened. And immediately the man's ears were opened, and his speech impediment was removed, and he spoke plainly. He ordered them not to tell anyone, but the more he ordered them not to, the more they proclaimed it. They were exceedingly astonished, and they said, "He has done all things well. He makes the deaf hear and the mute speak." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Being unable to hear or speak would be an extremely difficult situation to deal with. But it was even worse at the time of Jesus, when so few people could read or write. Everything was communicated through the spoken word. They didn't read books to learn their history. They told the stories. Over and over again, they would tell the stories that made them who they were. They would, as they did so, they applied those stories to what they were facing in the present day. They connected the experience of their ancestors to their own experience. Being unable to hear or speak, this man was cut off from all that. He didn't have all the other means of communication we have today. It's hard to imagine how isolated he must have felt. As we hear in the gospel, Jesus didn't make a show of it. He took him away from the crowd. He touched his ears, he touched his tongue, and he said, "Be opened." He gave the man his hearing and his speech. And in doing that, he reconnected this man with his community. We have many means of communication today, and we have the ability to overcome a lot of the obstacles we face in communication. Our healthcare can resolve many communication issues, and we can deal with others through the technology we have. But that doesn't mean we're as connected as we could be. It's not our ears and our tongues that need to be opened. Ours is more of a selective issue. We choose what we see and hear and speak. Jesus is saying to us today, he's saying, be opened to our hearts, our minds, and our wills. Jesus is saying, be open to our minds. Hear the word and truly listen to it. Take in the whole message, not just the part we like. Listen closely to those parts we find challenging or they make us uncomfortable. And at those times we want to say, oh, Jesus didn't really mean that. He probably did. Jesus is saying, be open to our hearts. Let the word take root in us. Let the compassion of our lives flow out freely to all. And Jesus is saying, be open to our wills. Don't just listen to the word, act on it. Put yourself in the position of the other person. Treat them the way you would want to be treated if you were facing those circumstances. I think the reason we are selective in what we see and hear is that we're afraid. We're afraid of the impact it may have on our lives. We're afraid it may lead us to question some of our beliefs. We're afraid it may cause some of our friends to turn away from us. We're afraid we may be asked to go farther than we would like. This fear has been a part of humanity since the beginning of time. Through Isaiah the prophet, God spoke clearly to us, "Be strong, fear not." And we can do that because our God is with us always.